Let's break this down from the very beginning. You've been taught to be accessible, to smile when you don't feel like it, to respond when you shouldn't, and to justify yourself even when no one has asked. You've been conditioned to be reachable, moldable, predictable. And the worst part is you accepted it as if it were normal. But think about it. What has this accessibility actually given you? Has it brought you peace? Has it given you power? No. It has turned you into an emotional puppet reacting to every word, every gesture, every hint. People can read you, and when they see that you react to every push, they push you harder. Because yes, the world is full of experts at pressing buttons. But these buttons only work if they're within reach. And this is where a concept that few truly understand comes into play: becoming unreachable. Not as a way to escape, but as an act of dominance, absolute self-control, and inner power. We're not talking about building walls to stop feeling. We're talking about learning how not to react, because every time you react, you expose yourself. Every time you explode, justify, or rush to explain why you did what you did, you're giving away your power. Silence isn't coldness, it's strategy. Mystery isn't indifference, it's magnetism. There are people who walk into a room, and without saying a word, they dominate the atmosphere. Not because they shout louder, but because they've learned not to be an open book. They don't give away their inner world for crumbs of attention. They don't rush to explain, justify, or please. They understand something the rest still don't. The less you give, the more they want to know. Humans are addicted to what they can't control, to what's mysterious, to what escapes their judgment. That's why unreachable people generate intrigue. They don't bend because they know how to let go. And here we arrive at another crucial point. Learning to let go isn't a loss. It's a liberation. Let go of that relationship that suffocates you, that job that drains you, that commitment that ties you down without meaning. Let go of the need to understand everything, to always be right, to be validated. The more you try to hold on, the more you depend. And dependence is the opposite of personal power. You can't be unreachable if you constantly seek validation, approval, or applause. Stopping the need to explain is also a form of letting go. You don't have to justify your decisions. You don't need to give reasons in order to protect your peace. You don't have to convince anyone that you're a good person. Because here's the truth. Those who judge you already have a story written about you. They're not looking for data, they're looking for confirmation. Don't feed their narratives. Stay quiet and let time speak for you. In a world where everyone shouts, the one who remains silent has control. In a world where everyone seeks to be seen, the one who becomes invisible becomes powerful. Presence isn't about being everywhere. It's about being impossible to ignore when you choose to be. You only achieve this when you stop reacting. When you don't let every word, every gesture, every expectation imposed by others drag you emotionally. Many confuse being unreachable with being cold, but it's not about coldness. It's about emotional maturity. The person who reacts to everything is ruled by their environment, while the person who chooses when and how to respond rules their life. And that's not isolation. It's sovereignty. Self-control isn't repression. It's choice. Choosing not to fall for provocations, choosing not to respond to messages that don't deserve your energy, choosing to step back before you become the villain in a story that was never yours, choosing silence when you know the explanation won't change anything, because sometimes the greatest act of power is doing nothing, and when you become unreachable, something shifts. Those who once manipulated you feel confused. Those who used you to unload their frustration can no longer find an echo. Those who expected to see you beg are faced with your absence, and you, in silence, in calm, continue moving forward. The peace that comes from not having to respond, not having to clarify, not having to prove anything is indescribable. But to get there, you have to go through a brutal process: detachment. You need to stop needing to be understood, to be loved, to be accepted. As long as you keep begging for affection, you'll remain reachable. And being reachable makes you vulnerable to other people's games. The key lies in boundaries. Boundaries that aren't shouted, negotiated, or advertised. Boundaries that are felt, lived, respected, because you respect them first. When you live with clear boundaries, people notice. And yes, you might lose a few along the way, but those weren't losses. They were liberations. Learning to let go is also learning not to carry what isn't yours. You can't rescue everyone. You can't be the emotional support for those who don't want to change. You can't be the eternal shoulder to cry on for those who use you as their emotional trash can. Be brutally selective with your energy, because it's not infinite. Every time you waste it on people who don't value you, you shrink yourself to fit into spaces you don't belong. Mystery, silence, and calm are not flaws. They are virtues of those who no longer need to shout to be heard, those who no longer live to impress but to be at peace. And that peace, it's so attractive, so magnetic, that those who see it want it. But they don't know that it can't be bought, faked, or stolen. It's built through painful decisions, letting go of what no longer fits, choosing yourself above everything else. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this. Not responding is a declaration of power. Not entering the game is winning. Not giving explanations is protecting your energy. Silence is your sword, and self-control is your shield. When you become unreachable, not because you're running away, but because you choose to, everything changes. The world begins to look at you differently, because the one who doesn't sell themselves is worth more. The one who doesn't seek to please earns respect. The one who doesn't respond controls the conversation without saying a word. That simple. That brutal. Being unreachable is not disappearing. It's appearing strongly when you decide to. It's not stopping feeling. It's knowing what's worth feeling. It's not being indifferent, it's having priorities. And when you understand that, you realize you've always had the power. You just had to stop giving it away. So tell me, are you going to keep reacting to everything, letting the world dictate who you are? Or are you going to start choosing what reaches you, what touches you, what defines you? Because that choice, no matter how subtle, changes everything. And you make it in silence, without announcing it, without asking for permission. Becoming unreachable is an act of self-love. It's telling the world, you won't have access to me just because you want to, but because I allow it. And that permission, my friend, is sacred. Guard it. Protect it. If someone tries to cross boundaries without invitation, let them meet silence as your answer. Not because you hate them, but because it no longer affects you. And that is the real victory. Unreachable. Not from arrogance, not from coldness, but because finally you are the master of yourself. And that is priceless. And if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has already begun to awaken. A silent discomfort, a sense that something needs to change. And although it feels uncomfortable, that's actually a positive sign. It means you're no longer content being the one who reacts to everything, the one who seeks to please, the one who constantly needs to be understood. Now it's time to dive into something more subtle, but deeply tied to the main idea, the energy. You project when you take control of yourself. People perceive more of you than you might realize, even when you say nothing. It's not just about what you communicate verbally. It's about how you occupy your space, how you manage your time, and the confidence you exude. There's a clear psychological basis for this. Humans can detect, even unconsciously, when someone needs constant attention or validation. That need is noticeable, and when it's there, it makes you vulnerable. Being unreachable also means learning how to manage your emotional relationships. It's about not being always available, not out of selfishness, but out of respect for yourself. Not everyone needs to know your thoughts, your plans, or your deepest emotions. Being selective isn't about shutting people out. It's about protecting yourself. When you share too much with too many, you lose your value. When everyone has access to you, you stop being special. Learning to establish a healthy emotional distance is an act of maturity. It means saying no calmly, taking the time you need without guilt, and knowing how to be alone without anxiety. The difference between being alone and feeling lonely is enormous. The first is a choice. The second is emotional dependence. Being clear about who you share your time and energy with is key. Not everyone deserves the same level of access to your life. Not everyone is equipped to handle your vulnerability. That's why it's so important to protect your inner space, not as a barrier, but as self-care. Another important point: your silence can have more impact than any explanation. When you don't react the way others expect, when you don't engage in unnecessary arguments, when you choose to respond with calmness or simply remain silent, you create a sense of security that demands respect. Often, people try to provoke a reaction to destabilize you, but if they don't get that reaction, they lose control over you. Self-control disarms them. And here's the tough part that many avoid confronting: the character you've built to please others may become a burden. That role you adopted to fit in, to be accepted, to avoid conflict, it might have served you at some point. But if it no longer represents who you are, holding on to it only pulls you further from your true self. Authenticity has a price, yes, but living inauthentically costs far more. That emotional wear is quiet but constant. Letting go of that character and showing up as your true self is not easy. Some people will distance themselves, but they weren't real connections in the first place. They were based on an artificial version of you. What remains after you let go is far more valuable. People who accept you without filters, relationships that are born from authenticity, a peace that doesn't depend on external approval. Internal coherence is felt. It's noticeable in how you act, how you speak, even in how you show up. And that's what makes you strong. It gives you solid presence without needing to impose yourself. That's why the energy you save by not reacting impulsively can be invested in yourself, improving, growing, and building something that speaks for you without needing explanations. Every time you choose to step back in time, every time you decide not to engage in things that don't bring you value, you're strengthening your identity. And that shows. It's perceived. It's respected. So now that you understand this, now that you feel it, ask yourself, what are you willing to leave behind to become a firm, centered person? One who no longer needs to react to everything to feel alive. Because being unreachable isn't about closing your heart. It's about opening your eyes. It's not stepping away from the world, it's getting closer to yourself. And that inner connection, that emotional clarity, is worth more than any external validation. Now that you've made it clear that becoming unreachable is a form of self-respect, we need to address something equally crucial, but rarely discussed: the difference between controlling yourself and repressing yourself. It's not about staying quiet out of fear. It's not about avoiding conflict out of cowardice. It's about consciously choosing when to act, when to speak, and above all, when not to. Repression comes from fear. Self-control comes from clarity. Repressing yourself poisons you from within. Controlling yourself strengthens you from within. That distinction changes everything. Think about this. The one who stays silent out of fear accumulates resentment. The one who stays silent strategically accumulates power. And this is where a new dimension comes in, little explored, but absolutely transformative: active patience. Do you know what one of the most powerful qualities of those who seem unreachable is? They don't rush to respond, to correct, to take revenge, or to clarify. They understand that time, when used intelligently, is an ally. Active patience isn't passivity, it's calculation. It's knowing that you don't need to rush because nothing that comes from impulse usually lasts over time. The impulsive person acts today and regrets tomorrow. The patient one observes today and acts only when necessary. That difference separates those who live reacting from those who live directing. But patience isn't easy. It requires trust in yourself, in your process, in the fact that you don't need to prove anything to keep being valuable. It requires holding silence when your ego screams for you to speak. It requires being comfortable with uncertainty when your whole body wants quick answers. And that inner battle, silent, is what defines your emotional strength. Now let's move on to another important concept that fits perfectly here: managing your personal value. Yes, You decide how much you're worth. And I'm not talking about self-esteem in the abstract, but something much more tangible. How you manage your time, your emotions, your energy. When someone can get your attention without earning it, you're diminishing your own value. When someone can have total access to you simply through proximity or persistence, you're giving more than you're receiving. Personal value isn't something that's spoken, it's something demonstrated. It's demonstrated through boundaries. It's shown by the things you tolerate, what you choose to ignore, what you decide to let go of, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. If we dig even deeper, there's another idea that deserves its own space. The difference between presence and availability. Presence is knowing how to be. It's entering a conversation or a room and contributing without seeking attention. It's generating impact effortlessly. But availability, that's something else. It's always being there, always responding, always giving of yourself. And when you confuse being present with being available, you end up emptying yourself. The one who is always available stops being valued. The one who is consciously present is remembered. The interesting part is, many people fear not being available because they fear losing connections. But they don't realize that this fear turns them into emotional slaves. I'll repeat, the fear of loss makes you a prisoner of what you no longer need. Here we enter another valuable territory, emotional dignity. Dignity is not pride. It's not coldness, it's not indifference, it's knowing what you deserve and never settling for less. It's not begging for explanations. It's not chasing answers from those who have no intention of giving them to you. It's accepting that not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. Because you're not here to convince anyone of your worth. You're here to live it. Living it means surrounding yourself with people who see your worth without you having to prove it. People who respect your silence, who don't fill it with assumptions or demands. People who understand that when you choose silence, it's not punishment, it's a message. And those who don't know how to read that message shouldn't be allowed to read the rest of you. Now let's talk about something that hurts but also frees conscious rejection. Learning to reject what doesn't align with you, even when it comes disguised as an opportunity, even when it comes at a time when you want it most. Because not everything that shines fits into your path. Sometimes, true self-control is saying no to something you want because you know you deserve something better. And this is where the concept of being unreachable takes on a new depth. It's not about others not being able to have you. It's about you choosing who you allow to get close, with a logic that prioritizes your emotional stability, your peace, and your process. Being unreachable, at its core, means being invulnerable to what used to hurt you. It's knowing that your value doesn't fluctuate based on who stays or who leaves. It's having made peace with losing what no longer adds value to your life. It's looking serenely at what once disturbed you. It's feeling calmly what once broke you. It's choosing yourself again and again without drama, without noise, without spectacle. And when you get there, something changes, not just in you, but in your environment too. You no longer attract those who seek weakness. You no longer seduce from lack. You no longer connect from your wounds. Because your energy has stopped begging. Now it's firm. It's stable. It's enough. And that transforms everything. Do you feel it? Then continue, because what comes after becoming unreachable is becoming free. And just when you think there are no more layers to uncover, the most subtle one appears, the most powerful. The one that very few reach, the tranquility of not needing anyone to understand you to feel whole. That is the last frontier of self-control. Not only choosing what you say, but accepting that you don't need to be understood to have value. The world constantly seeks explanations, labels, definitions, but you're not here to be deciphered. Like a manual, you're here to live yourself, to be a well-managed mystery, to be a presence that doesn't need justifications. Listen carefully. It's not arrogance, it's depth. It's having dug so deep inside yourself that you can no longer settle for superficial relationships or empty validations. You've been through too much to keep lowering yourself to fit in. You've felt too much to keep pretending lightness. That's why the end of this journey is not a destination. It's a new way of walking, a way in which you're no longer pushed because you decide your pace, a way in which you're no longer dragged because you choose your direction, a way in which you no longer run to be seen because you know that those who truly matter will notice you, even in silence. And if you still have doubts, if you feel that sometimes you falter, that you still react more than you wish, don't punish yourself. It's part of the process. Becoming unreachable is not a one-day goal. It's a daily practice. It's falling without getting lost. It's recognizing that sometimes it's hard, but even so, you choose to move forward. Now, before you leave, I want to propose something. Write this phrase in the comments. My silence is not absence, it's dominion. I want to read it. I want to know how many are willing to live from that place of power, from that calmness that's non-negotiable. And if this video stirred something inside you, if it made you think about that version of you that no longer wants to keep reacting to the world, then subscribe. Because here we talk about what's not said, what's felt deeply, about what they don't always explain to you, but which changes everything. And now I say goodbye. But not like everyone else does. Not with a, see you soon. I say goodbye with a silence. One that weighs, one that leaves space for you to fill it, because this is not the end of the video, it's the beginning of you. One that no one will be able to reach. I disappear.